Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us this evening. This is John McDougall. I am the event coordinator here at Murder by the Book in Houston. And before we get into tonight's event, just want to do some general store announcement stuff, let you guys know what is going on with us. We're so excited. We just opened up again on Sundays. So we are now open 7 days a week for the first time since March of 2020. So we're open 12 to 5 on Sundays. So we hope that you will come visit Brenda and Sally when they are there. And then our regular hours are 10 to 6 rest of the week. So we're super excited about that. We've had a lot of people asking about when we're going to be able to start doing some in-store stuff again. So we are going to finish out 2021 with virtual events. We've got another 2 weeks worth of virtual events, and then we'll take the last 2 weeks off as a break for the holidays. But starting in 2022, we have some in-store stuff on the books. We've got Alafair Burke, James Rollins, Nick Petrie, Brad Taylor. So a lot of our usual start of the year people are actually going to be coming through to the store, provided everything keeps the way it is at the moment. You know, as we've tried to plan this multiple times and we always somehow end up canceling. So we're hoping, we've got our fingers crossed that everything's going to keep going in the right direction and we'll be able to get some authors in the store in January. We're also still going to keep doing virtual events. At the moment, we're trying to figure out what the balance of that is going to be, and also the balance of potentially being able to live stream in-store stuff that's happening online as well. So definitely keep an eye out on all of that. We, if you look at the January and February calendar, you'll see events are either listed as in-store or they are listed as virtual. Also wanted to mention a couple of quick things we've got going on for the holidays. If you visit the website, if you look at the Murder by the Box tab, you can see our subscription boxes. We've got 3 different options, and they can be picked up or mailed, and you can do those for 3 months or a full year. So if you're looking to potentially have somebody have us pick out a book and send it to somebody once a month, definitely check that out. We're also doing our gift card promotion again, which if you buy a $25 gift card, we'll give you an extra $5. $50 gift card has an extra 10 on it, and 100 has an extra 20. And you can also find those on the website. So I hope that you guys will check that stuff out too. But now I'm going to get us into tonight's event. We're so excited for this one. But first, I'm going to bring out Sarah Strohmeyer. How are you tonight, Sarah?
Great. How are you? You're wearing a t-shirt. I'm wearing a sweater and a jacket over it.
Yeah,
very different climates.
We were lied to by our local. There's this really great website, Space City Weather, that their whole thing is like weather without the hype. But they said they didn't think that we were going to get into the 80s again this year. But I think we might have hit it today. So it's a little bit warmer than, which I will take after the days and days of no power and cold that we had earlier this year. So
yeah, not fun.
Yeah. So Sarah's new book, Do I Know You, just came out on Tuesday, and we're so excited to be chatting with her this evening. For those of you who are not familiar, Sarah Strohmeyer is the best-selling and award-winning novelist whose books include The Secrets of Lily Graves, How Zoe Made Her Dreams Mostly Come True, Smart Girls Get What They Want, The Cinderella Pact, which became the original Lifetime movie Lying to Be Perfect, The Sleeping Beauty Proposal, The Secret Lives of Fortunate Wives, Sweet Love, and the Bubbles mystery series. Her writing has appeared in numerous publications, including the Cleveland Plain Dealer and the Boston Globe, and she lives with her family outside of Montpelier, Vermont. So we're so excited for this tonight, and we're going to have Sarah in conversation with Wendy Corsi-Staub. So while you're chatting, if you guys have questions for either author about these books, previous books, writing process, any of that stuff, make sure you post those in the live chat on YouTube or the comments on Facebook, and we will get to those in a little bit. So now we're going to bring out Wendy. How are you tonight, Wendy?
Hi, great. Thank you.
It's good to see you again.
It's good to be back at Murder by the Book virtually.
Yeah. That's one of the nice things about these, the virtual events, is we get to see you a lot more than we potentially would throughout the year if you were touring. And, we get to do these great pairings that we might not necessarily be able to do because of geography and things like that too. So Wendy has a busy, it looks like, release week coming up. Next Tuesday, she's going to have Pros and Cons, number 4 in the Lily Dale series, come out. And then at the end of December, she's going to have a reissue of Lullaby and Goodnight. And then in January, she's going to have another book called The Other Family coming out. So lots of good stuff coming up from Wendy. And her official bio, New York Times and USA Today best-selling author Wendy Corsi-Staub has published more than 90 novels over a 28 year career under her own name and various pseudonyms, including Wendy Markham. She's been honored 5 times with the Westchester Library Association Washington Irving Prize for Fiction, has won an RWA Rita Award, an RT Award for Career Achievement in Suspense, and the 2007 RWA NYC Golden Apple Award for Lifetime Achievement, and is a 3-time finalist for the Mary Higgins Clark Award. She lives in the New York City suburbs with her husband, sons, and cats. So I'm going to let you guys get into the chat. But like I said, if you guys have questions out there while they're talking, please post those in the comments and we'll get to them in a little bit. But for now, I'm going to turn it over to Wendy and Sarah, and I will see you guys in just a little bit.
Great. Okay, I have to say, Sarah, I'm reading it. I am so close to the end. I've been reading it on audio all week and dying, dying to know. I know there's a big twist. You're keeping me guessing. This book is amazing. I'm not just saying that because we're here. I would have reached out to you to say it anyway, but let's start with the plot. It just super recognizer. Tell me, like, why did you write about a super recognizer and where did that come from? Like,
okay, so before we get to that, I want to know, did you listen to that while you were swimming?
I did. I listened to, okay, so yesterday or the day before, I listened, there's a scene on the beach. I'm not going to give away spoilers, and obviously I don't know how it ends, so I won't be giving away the big spoiler. But yeah, I was reading the scene about, you have a near drowning scene in the ocean. Yep. I was swimming while I was reading.
You know, I got that from my brother, who used to be a lifeguard down at the Jersey Shore. And he actually had a situation like that, you know, because, well, we'll go into that later. I mean, that's where I drew that experience of somebody just out there in the water, in the ocean, just kind of going under. Because when people are drowning, they're not flailing, they're not doing what you think. They just start going down, and their body starts shutting off. So I'm sorry you had to read that while you were swimming. I'm still impressed. You listen to audiobooks while you're doing laps. I think that's fantastic.
It makes me want to swim more. Like I did my whole swim the last few days because of your book.
Really impressive. You look great.
Oh, God.
We last saw each other 8 years ago or something.
It's been so long.
Okay. So super recognizer. Jane Ellison is the protagonist in this novel, and she is a super recognizer, one of the rare breed, and these people actually exist, who has a brain quirk in that she is able to remember people from just brief encounters decades later. And she can remember them just from the curve of their face or their nose or their gait. And she can also remember where she saw them. And if you go to my website, sarahstrohmeyer.com, there is a test that you can take. I think it was run by Harvard, Princeton, about if you can take it's a little bit of a test that super recognizers take now to see if you have this skill or this brain quirk. So when she's working for Homeland Security at Logan Airport, and that's a whole other thing that I've got to talk to you about later. But anyway, she is infiltrating the crowd, recognizing people who might be in disguise, who may want to do people harm. And she's very good at what she does. So when she sees this beautiful woman get out of first class, she knows cold that this is the woman who was last with her sister when she disappeared at the edge of a dark Cape Cod beach 11 years before. And no one believes her. And she's ridiculed and she's fired from her job, and she receives, you know, multiple cease and desist letters from this woman's very powerful attorneys, but she is undaunted. She is going to pursue this woman. But as we get closer and closer to this encounter between the two of them, there are some things about Jane's past and her own mental stability that we begin to question. And I should also note that this woman is marrying into a kind of Gwyneth Paltrow Goop family in a compound set off Cape Cod. And that was the most fun to research. Like, I was talking about this with Jenna Blum the other night, and Jenna just like orders from Goop left and right, you know. So yes, I think Jenna does own the cashmere sweatpants. The must-have, the essential cashmere sweatpants.
I loved that angle in the book. It's just very sly. I mean, you have There's a whole section on euphemisms so that they can
Yeah, that was
avoid
fun.
the Google search.
Oh,
I love it.
Wendy, I'm going to tell you something. I made that up out of my own little sick brain. So there you go.
It was really good. There were just, I mean, it's very, it's sly is because you're writing, it's a dark book, you know, the subject matter is dark.
Yeah.
You have a wonderful sense of humor, and it just, this stuff too is very timely. And I love, there's a couple that comes to stay with their 2 children.
Yes.
With the heroine and her boyfriend, and you know, they're like the super parents, the parents who are, you know, the fridge is full of organic applesauce, and you know, it's just so great. It's just.
So have you ever had house guests on vacation?
You know what? I think I've been the house guest on vacation.
Because you just simmer with resentment. You're like, wait a minute, whose vacation is this? If I'm the one who's out there cooking, shopping, you know. So I got a lot of that old pent up aggression left over from when I was house hosting at the Cape, you know.
Yeah, and the Cape. So that's what that I had jotted that down as I was reading, not underwater. That makes it hard to take notes. But I was wondering about the Cape because it's mainly set on the Cape anyway, as far as I am into the book right now. But have you spent a ton of time there? Because I've spent a little bit of time there, and it rings so true.
Well, when I was very young, my parents had friends who had a kind of duck hunting shack on Lieutenant's Island, which is off of Wellfleet. And so I hated being there. I thought it was the worst. It was hot. There were those green flies. It was muggy. There was nothing to do. There were crabs in the sand. I wanted to be at the Jersey Shore, you know, with my friends. Why couldn't I have a sidewalk? Why couldn't we have a Ferris wheel? Why couldn't we have skee ball? What was this, you know, nature? Right. But of course, now Lieutenant's Island is all ritzy, and I think the duck hunting shack has just been reduced to is now some sort of mega mansion.
Yeah.
So, but you know, you have a tie. Like my brother ended up. I'm originally from Pennsylvania, but he's probably going to end up retiring in Northeast. And he got a beautiful house there, and we would just take our kids down there after when we moved to Vermont. So we spent a lot of time down there, and I still feel a connection. Although I have to tell you, so here's the weird thing. I went down to Thanksgiving to visit my brother at the Cape, and I decided to go see Nauset Light Beach because I'd had a scene set at Nauset Light Beach, and it's gone. It is gone. I mean,
what do you mean? It's not like the lighthouse?
I mean, the building where she has some sort of breakdown, the stairs to the water, it's gone. And I flipped out, and I said, you know, I turned to this guy who was standing next to me and I said, oh my God, it's gone. And he's like, what are you talking about? He was from Georgia, but I did a signing down in Massachusetts, and I said, Nauset Light is gone. Everyone said, I know, it's gone.
What happened to it? Did it wash away, or was
I mean, I think the storms, you know, just battered it. And I, you know, within our lifetime, probably Cape Cod's going to break in two up right to. Do you ever go up there?
We were there on our honeymoon, and then we lived a few years after that as newlyweds in the 90s. So I haven't been there. We lived in New England for a few years, and we spent some time there.
It's changed, and it's devastating, you know. So there's a scene in my book that will make no sense.
Now
I don't know how to explain it. Sorry, the beach washed out between drafts.
It's fiction. So
it's fiction. It's fiction. And thank you for saying that, because when I also did the signing in Massachusetts, I did a little reading at the beginning about Logan Airport, and she was working at Homeland Security and how she's watching everybody. And I'll tell you how I got into the super recognizer thing later. But anyway, this one raises her hand and she says, hi, I work for Homeland Security at Logan Airport. And she says, what kind of research did you do? And I just felt so busted, you know, as like, well, I read.
I'm going to write a sequel and talk to you.
I know. You kindly bought a book, and I was like, you know, just skip past that part.
Right, it rang true to me, but I saw on your website that you are on a terrorist watch list. What is this about?
Okay. So that is how I got the whole, that's how I got into the super recognizer thing. So do you remember when we were, back in the days when we would go on book tours? Do you remember those days?
Oh God, yes, even together. I remember being with you at events in person.
And you had all those one-way tickets, and it was the year after, maybe a year after 9/11. I was on a book tour, and my publicist had booked all the tickets under Strohmeyer, and I had no ID under Strohmeyer except for my passport, which all my ID is under my married name. And then they were all one-way tickets, and then one was to Houston, and one went to England or something. And that was enough to get me on the terrorist watch list.
I'm sure it was. What happened? Did you have trouble at the airports then?
Every single time I was stopped. It was supposed to be random. It was super high security back then. And so they pulled me aside, and I was also dressing up as Bubbles for
God, on the plane. Like, tell us who Bubbles is for people who don't know.
Well, in fact, I used to do this at Murder by the Book, and I got to hand it to the Texans because they were just great. They got it right away. I mean, I would dress up like this in New England, and people were like, "What? Who? What?" But I would dress as my character, Bubbles Uplonsky. He was a hairdresser from Bethlehem, well, not from Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, from Lehigh, Pennsylvania. Pink bald hair salon, Steel Town, that type of thing. And I had a big blonde wig, and I had a see-through leopard print shirt and this gel-filled leopard print bra, which I wish I hadn't lost because I could really use that, and fishnet stockings, and needless to say, I was in my early 40s. So anyway, I would come to book signings like that with heels, and I also at the time was reading Jennifer Weiner's book Good in Bed, so it was making a great tableau. And go to like this for the worst. I remember saying I have got to do something when it was the Southwest flight, and he had my bag right there, and they opened it in front of everybody, and they were walking past, and they were pulling out all this stuff, and finally somebody took pity on me and said, "You've got this little ding on your passport that says that you are a threat."
A threat.
So, mother of two from Vermont.
And you're dressed as Bubbles when this is all unfolding. At the time, was it all in your suitcase? It was.
No. At that time, it was all my suitcase. Still, it was like,
no, she has disguises.
She has disguises. Who knows? I should file a FOIA or something like that.
Oh God.
So then I was in England, and I was going there for an engagement with Hodder Headline, who was publishing my British books, and I was detained for a really long time in the airport. I don't know why. And I think I was going back to Houston, so that's probably why. And and so these guys were very, very polite. We started talking about the shoe bomber. Do you remember the shoe bomber?
Yes.
And that's why we all have to take off our shoes.
Right.
And guys said, "Oh, you Americans are so silly and so stupid. We are so far ahead of you because we've had to deal with the IRA. People who, terrorists who infiltrate crowds, parades, royal events, airports. And we have trained super recognizers who are able to look through cameras and also be able to pull these people out before they do any harm." So it's kind of like
scanning the crowd in the airport.
Scanning the crowd in the airport, mingling, and they're able to go places that, this is before facial recognition software really took off. But also, I think, I supposedly they still use them.
Right.
And so I tucked that away and then, pulled it out 20 years later.
It's great. I feel like I'm the anti-super recognizer because I don't remember faces.
That's much more common.
It's much more common. It's embarrassing. But for her, it's kind of, it's fascinating because you have some moments where she'll see someone on the street and she'll be like, "I saw him in this restaurant in Harvard Yard, and I saw him at the mall sipping coffee." Like, she has this, it's memory too.
Right. It's
that
cool.
goes along with it, but her brain must be so cluttered. My pea brain can't handle remembering.
Well, like this other signing I did, I said to somebody, like, "Does anybody know that Kirsten Dunst was in Jumanji?" And a certain generation said, yeah, we all know. It's like, okay, well, see, I didn't.
I didn't know, but I read that in your book. I heard it.
So there you go. Yeah.
There you go. Fascinating trove of
rather fascinating.
Did you set out to, this is suspense. This is a departure for you from your recent books, right? Like, did you say, what came first? The idea of the super recognizer, or I want to write suspense. I'm going to turn my
Well, I think so. I think what's
Genres.
happened, and I figured this out, is that when I first started writing, I'm just going to show you this. John left off this incredible literary trope, which is
I love it. Barbie
Barbie
Unbound.
Unbound. So I wrote that when I was in a postpartum depression, and I am willing to. I mean, John, if anybody in Houston, Murder by the Book, buys one of my books, we can randomly send this to them, and they can do whatever they want, burn it. But for a while, it was the most shoplifted book in America. Got me on CBS This Morning, and I took Barbie and 40 contemporary and historical poses. I mean, seriously, Wendy, my postpartum depression was not good. And I was stuck in Vermont with people in Texas. I've told this story, and people are like horrified. I said, these people will not let you play with Barbies. And they wouldn't let my daughters play with Barbies. You only have boys, right?
Yeah, I only have boys, but I love my Barbies, and I have.
See,
them,
there you go.
Yeah.
So, and I just want you to know that my daughter grew up to be fine and normal, and a feminist. And
right.
Anyway, so I wrote that when I was going through that postpartum depression thing. I think I wrote Bubbles when I was kind of nostalgic for my hometown, and then I wrote the standalone books because I was getting into middle age, and these middle age things were happening. Like my next door neighbor Trish was dying. That's kindred spirits.
Yeah.
And then when my daughter and her friends became teenagers and they were doing all this cool stuff, I wrote young adult books. I quickly learned that I'm too old to write young adult.
But you're such a hip mom.
And so then I took a break. I became a town clerk. I'm still an elected town clerk. So in Middlesex, Vermont, proudly so. And then I started reading. I mean, I think you can agree that the thriller or domestic suspense world has really taken off in the past.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Lately, the last few years. I mean, I've written it for years, but I feel like all of a sudden, and they had coined the phrase at one point, they coined, what was it? Oh God, now I can't even remember because I got up really early to read your book and swim.
Oh, I'm sorry. Now you make me feel guilty
when this happens. But anyway, it was like as if it were a new thing. And I feel like it's always been cyclical, but it's very hot. Like the last few years, I think, it's really taken off again. So,
and there's so many voices. And so, the Brits have got their own thing going. And
so,
I started to realize, there's the rule that you should write what you read.
Yeah.
I think, I know that there are romance authors out there who never read romance, but they write romance. I couldn't do it. Right. I wish I did because I'd be really super wealthy. But, so I just wanted to write what I wanted to read. And so that's why I started doing this. And I really loved it. It's a challenge, it's definitely a challenge.
And she's an unreliable narrator and it's first person. So I love that element, but you do have other, and you have other characters, obviously other primary characters. On the audio, you have one of my favorite narrators. She does my books. Hillary Huber does.
Yes.
Eve, I think she does, but you have different voices. But Jane, our heroine, is, people think she's crazy and the reader starts to wonder, because she keeps saying that she's seen people here and there. And it's just fascinating because our window to most of the action is through her eyes. And
it's fun. It's really fun to write. It's fun to read. I've read some really good unreliable narrators recently. I mean, of course, Gillian Flynn really kicked it off, but have you read No One Will Miss Her by Kat Rosenfield?
No.
Oh, yes.
So I need to write this down.
Yes, he's very good. And that was excellent. And then, Michelle Martinez Campbell, she used to be one of our Lipstick Chronicle gals. She wrote Stranger on the Beach. That's too. So there, just when you think I can't read another unreliable narrator, it's like,
I love them. I love them. And I feel like you did it in a fresh way.
Oh, good.
And she's sympathetic, and she's looking for her sister. And I just love, there's something really poignant about someone who recognizes people and she can't find the person. I mean, her bloody t-shirt washed up on the beach. I don't think that's a spoiler, right? To give that away. Her sister disappeared. The bloody t-shirt washed up on the beach. And for all of these years since, her family was devastated.
And there are repercussions. And I just want to point out that the reason why her sister is drug addicted, not to get into a really serious, social commentary,
Right.
but she's was addicted to opiates because of a high school gymnastics accident. And
yeah, I love the way you did that.
But that's really common, it's sad. And I think people now are much more conscious of what was going on. But I can remember, years ago when they would just give you like a Tylenol.
Yeah.
Hey, here you go. Here's 20. Here's some OxyContin. Go home.
Yeah, you have a tooth pulled and you have a medicine cabinet full of, and you know what? It made me sick. Like I do remember getting, I think it was a wisdom tooth, whatever, and one of whatever they gave me, and I felt like I had the bed spins, and I was gonna, it was kind of like, it was horrible. But so luckily I got rid of them because I never realized it was dangerous.
Nasty stuff, especially if you've got teenagers in the house. I know. I never worried about my kids getting it. It was just always this, like, it was like in my drawer for the longest time. Like, what am I going to do with this OxyContin? But, now my dentist is like, well, if you need something, and she'll like crack a little thing on and put it in a little, it's like, oh, come on.
Right. Or take a Tylenol.
Take a Tylenol. You're good. Suffer.
Right.
So,
like childbirth. The same thing.
So, I think that I just want people to know that that she's the drug addiction and siblings are a thing. And I had a sibling with addiction to a different type of drug called alcohol, and he's not alive anymore. So I get that whole idea of wanting to save somebody and not being able to, and also the guilt you might feel as a teenager when your older sibling is going through this. Your sibling who you loved and was your childhood friend, and then changes because of drugs and then disappears and just seems to vanish. And then when she finds this person who has the answer to where her sister is, the world closes in on her, and that's, it's unfair. Everyone's concerned about this woman, Bella Valencia's reputation. They're not concerned about the fact that this woman is missing.
Right.
She's
been missing. And
right.
So Bella is the bride. I mean, there's a wedding, there's a celebrity wedding. It kind of reminded me of a Kennedy-esque compound type of thing, right?
Funny that you mentioned that.
Is that what you were going for?
Well, I originally wrote this book. I had like a Kennedy-esque family, and my agent was like, "No."
I love the wellness thing. It's like Kennedy on Goop. It's
the wellness thing was, and also again, so much fun to research and write. I know you know about procrastination, so whenever you're like, "Ooh,
oh God, yeah,
I need to research this," because
for 5 weeks.
5 weeks.
And maybe go to a wellness retreat.
I need to go to a wellness retreat because I need to have the essential martini glass, or I need to have the essential sprig of rosemary for $65.
It's so dead on. It's so good. It's just so good. And, I just don't know how you balance, 1 minute it's like bubbles though. It's, you walk that line really well. I love
Johnny Cash and I walk the line.
But he's been everywhere, man. He
has been everywhere, right? That's the next novel. Yeah. Johnny Cash.
What are you working on? What are you working on now? Are you working on another?
I am working on something, and I'm overdue.
Okay.
And I'm using all these opportunities to let my editor know that the deadline that was November 30th, I will not be making it. I bet you make every single deadline, right?
No,
I write 90 books.
I actually fell behind, and once I fell behind, I was behind for a few years perpetually, and now I just turned in something about 6 weeks early, or almost 2 months early. I was so proud of myself, but I have another one to write. So I think I'm back on track. Once you slip up, it's like the dominoes fall, right? So how close are you to making your November 30th?
Oh my God. You are that girl in high school, right?
No, I'm not. It's so funny.
For your test, did you do that book report? That's what you are. I knew it. You're one of those little
Sarah, I made my deadline early. It's so funny because to explain to those who weren't there on our private email, Sarah thought, because I was reading the book, that I was that girl in high school who,
right.
Like, you forgot to give us homework.
Right. You forgot to assign us homework.
I wasn't.
You were. You can deny it, but you were. I can tell. So how close are you to that? Thank you. I think you're you know what I think you are? I think you're a HarperCollins shill. I think you've been sent as a little spy. Yeah, go find out how far behind she is. Oh my God, don't give her another contract ever.
Oh
Okay.
God, no, I'm the last person because late. I mean, if my editor's watching, she knows I've been chronically late for a few. So I understand. And this time of year is really hard. I mean,
It is.
there's something about, I don't know, it's the holiday situation, and then people get sick and kids come home, and it just,
I have had in almost all my books, I have had editors return books to me for revision on December 23rd. I'm like, I know you guys, and that's happened. So I just feel, I feel okay about it. I'm old.
It's all right. It's all right.
It's all right. Thank you.
How many drafts, did you do? Was this like multiple drafts? What's your process? Do you do just one draft?
My process is to be really inefficient. That is my tried and true process. I always tell this story about my third grade teacher, Mrs. Caffrey, telling my mother that Sarah will always do things the hard way. She would have loved you, by the way. I'm sure. Hey, this is my cat. So she, I know she has. You can't do this at a live signing down in Houston, can you? So my process, you get a lot of questions like this at signings. Like, what's your process? Do you outline? So I start off with the best of intentions. I outline and I trick myself into thinking, oh, this will be the time when I just write the book and everything is going to go smoothly, right? Because otherwise you would never start writing, correct?
You write the book that you sold, right? I never do that.
Would be nice if you do that, right?
Right.
And basically I get usually about 30,000 words in and say, this is wrong. But I make myself go to 60,000 words and then I start rewriting and then I go. Is that bad? Is that a bad situation?
No, because actually, I just cut about, 10,000 words from the book that I just finished because I was meandering, and my process it's chaos too, but it works for me, and my life is usually chaos, and I'm the kind of person that walks through a room with like paper swirling around her head. You could ask my husband, I always got, if I'm writing, I have piles, and that's why they're all behind my laptop right now. I have piles of paper stacked everywhere, just chaos, but it's organized chaos.
It's organized. See that you've got a system in your subconscious.
It wouldn't make sense to anyone else. And if someone asked me how close I am to finishing a book, I honestly wouldn't really know. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I think I'm done. Or I'm like, crap, I woke up thinking I was about to turn it in, and there are at least 2 more months worth of work. And
I know. I was talking last night when we were doing a virtual signing. Sarah, this person who interviewed me is Sarah Seward Taylor, and she's a mystery writer as well. And she and I used to work in the newspaper together. So we have this kind of, idea in our brains about deadlines. You've got to make deadlines. And she said she would like a deadline, but then 3 weeks later, like someone to just, say, okay, your deadline's November 30th. Just kidding. It's January 1st,
Right.
Just like a fake out deadline, because that's the only thing that kind of
would work for her.
Do you work straight Word, or do you use Scrivener, or what do you use?
I do Word, but I still miss Word Perfect. I loved Word Perfect, and they don't make it for.
Yeah, I do not.
So what do you do? I tried Scrivener once. Yeah. I had a hard time with it, and it was too crazy for me. What do you use? Yeah,
I use Scrivener. I find that I can just kind of write scenes, and I can see them all on the side, and I mean, Word doesn't offer me anything, so
no.
I find that's it's extremely helpful. Then in the end, I have to kind of transfer it all to Word, but that's also part of the process.
That was the hard part, I think, for me. And I did have random scenes here and there. I finally learned in the last year or two to give myself permission to write a nonlinear, like if I'm stuck, I give myself permission to write the interesting scene that comes later. And usually I can go.
The old Stephen King rule, don't you?
What is it from On Writing? Because I have
it is, and that is the best writing book, is it not?
No, I haven't. I haven't read it because
oh my god,
I haven't. It's somewhere behind me. No, what is
very good? It's that you get to a part where if you're not feeling in the mood, you just write. Crazy stuff happens here, and then move on.
That's
I remember I had to write love scenes for Bubbles, which I found so difficult that I actually had to buy books and read them about how to write love scenes. And I learned a lot.
I have those books too. How to write a love scene. It's on my shelf. I do. I found it really hard too. I found it hard. I wrote romance, and I found that difficult.
It's really difficult. You've got to make it genuine. You've got to build tension. You've got to have a release of tension. You can't just,
But there's only a few things that can be done. Like it's like you're just writing the same thing.
You need to open your eyes. Have you read romance lately? There's a lot that can be done. Do you have a kitchen? Do you have a utensil drawer? Just help yourself.
I am not the hip mom writing romance.
He's not the hip mom, yeah.
But no, I love the way that you have jumped genres and done it well, because people seem to assume like if it's like a miracle if you can write something different. And I always think, I do the same thing. I think I read different genres. So
there you go.
Wouldn't I be able to? And you were a journalist, so you were a writer is a writer, right?
So what do you have coming up?
I have a cozy, like a traditional, and my cat Chance is in it. She likes to be mentioned, although she just clawed me and jumped away when I yanked her. But at that I have a show and tell, so I have pros and cons coming out.
Wait, no, I can't see it in the light. You got to move it in the light.
Oh yeah, wait.
Pros and cons.
It's a Lilydale mystery. It's my Lilydale Mysteries, and then I have The Other Family, and that's a standalone psychological suspense. So that's coming in January. So I'm gearing up for the non-book tour. I mean, I'm doing a live event. I'm doing a couple of events that are scheduled too. But I've kind of liked the virtual in a way. I mean, you can sort of be wearing your pajama bottoms and sneakers on the bottom, which I am doing.
No, it is. It's nice. And
I get to see, I think it's been fun. Like in some aspects, I've enjoyed it. But boy, do I miss seeing people. Don't you miss seeing readers in person?
I do. And so when we did this event in Massachusetts at an Unlikely Story, a great book, independent bookstore, very much like Murder by the Book, although it's not, as killing centered.
Right. I know, those are our people when they walk in the door there. I always feel like readers come in.
It was really nice to interact with the readers. It was nice to have them. They were there to have fun, and that was kind of fun. And also, I brought Jenna Blum, who was my moderator for that event. I gave her some maple bourbon, figuring for sure she'd re-gift it, but she didn't. She said, "Let's do shots," and we can't do that here. See. I'm going to mention my New York Times book review because I am that kind of whore. So last Sunday, New York Times.
Oh, yes.
I will.
I was going to lead with that.
I'll send you the whole review. Is Sarah Weinman? I don't know what I can do for her. Sarah, God. If you see this interview, I will throw myself on a sword for you.
Oh God, it was wonderful. It was.
So I just got to tell you one other thing. So Jenna Blum, I'm named Jenna. But anyway, she's so fast. She said, "Oh yeah, the last line of that book was that the ending." I'm going to read this to you so you understand her comment. She said the last line was, "There's an anarchic quality that kept me reading near breathless until all assumptions were gloriously upended." And she read that and she said, "So that's your tramp stamp, right?"
That's what you can do for Sarah Weinman.
That's what I can do. I had gloriously upended tattooed across my ass. Thank you, Sarah Weinman.
That is what you need to do for Sarah. She'll appreciate that.
Well, I'm sure she would. I'm sure she'd say, "Thank you. I don't really want to see a picture of that."
I know Homeland Security doesn't want to see that. If they're still watching you. Are they still watching you, Homeland Security, or are you off the list now?
No, I'm still on.
You're still on?
I mean, I got a whole new passport and everything, and our son was running in I don't know, Missouri or Kansas. He's was for an all-American race when he was in college. And so we flew out of Montreal. And when we came back, boom, there I am, detained once again. It sucks. I cannot get off. I sat next to a pilot on a flight once, and he said, "You just got to write the TSA, and you've got to tell him to take you off."
Can you
That'll
get global entry or something? Maybe you could get like that status, or will they not give it to you? Because I have one of those where you
I don't
can
go
get,
anywhere. I'm stuck in my house in
I
Vermont.
know. I know. I actually kind of really, I know. It's good for writers though, right? To feel like you're just home. Like you just, I think the noise in my own head anyway has calmed down a lot in the last year and a half. And I've been more productive just because I don't feel, the need to travel or to,
Yeah.
be less social, I guess.
Well, I just enjoy looking at pictures of your family gatherings with your great wraparound porch.
Oh yeah, my dad's house. We were up there. I
Mhm.
hadn't been to my hometown in, I think it was a year and a half almost at that point. We didn't go last Christmas. So yeah, there were some poignant reunions over the last year. And I'm trying to think, so are you going to write the pandemic into a book or not? Are you going
Are you
to
going to write the
acknowledge it?
pandemic into a book or not?
I don't know.
I don't think
know.
so.
I
I
haven't
think-
yet.
I think that this has been one of the best parts of writing a book during COVID was I didn't have any characters with any masks. I had characters who
Right.
were hugging each other. It was like being in a dream and then waking up and saying, "Oh yeah, that's right. This sucks,"
Yeah, and it's escape for readers who, and also
Right.
when we were writing, like when I was writing The Other Family, I think I pitched it and sold it early on. And I said to my editor, like, do you think I should put it in? And then we realized like, we don't know where this is going.
Yeah.
I can't, because I kind of had the idea that it would be set in a very specific time frame. And then I kind of
Right.
backed off of that. Just in a specific real life, like it's 2020.
So can I ask you a
I
quick question
didn't.
about your Lily Dale mysteries? Because I'm trying to think of what the nonfiction book was that I read, and I think you and I spoke about it online.
Christine Wicker. I have it on my shelf behind me. That's another on my shelf. Everything is on my shelf, which is probably about the top on my head. It's the Christine Wicker book. Yeah, it was. I'm sure that was it. The
Right,
About the Dead.
Did they pack up and did they move to Maine or something? Do you
Oh
know?
wait, then we're not talking about the same book.
No.
We're not talking about.
They're kind of, it was a really fascinating book. I wish I had the title, just tracing the whole medium in is it the burned over district? What do you call that part?
Oh, the burned over district. You're one of the only people who have ever heard say that. It's in my book.
My husband gets credit for that. So
that's So the burned over district was the upstate New York
Right.
region in the mid 1800s. Was a hotbed of, there were those pesky suffragettes. There were, it was
fascinating.
People with different ideas, free thinkers and abolitionists, and so they called it the burned over district because it was fiery.
And so did you believe in all the medium? Have you come to believe all the medium stuff? What's your theory on that?
There's stuff that's happened to me. I lost my mom, and I would love to think that she's with me every second. And she went there with me. I was researching my original Lily Dale series. I did a series for young adult when she was dying, and she came with me, and I knew if there was a way to get through to me, she would do it. And we were both thinking it. I knew that. And so did she? I'm pretty sure she did. But, you could look at that and say, oh, coincidence. So I think.
Now, I have almost the exact same thing with my mother dying. Almost the exact same thing. Really, really amazing, pointed moment. Do you want me to tell? Do we have time to tell it?
Yes. Can you tell us that you are convinced?
Yes. So the story I tell is my mother had a stroke in Alaska, and she was ill for like a month in the ICU, and she was supposedly getting better and getting better. My brother and I were shuffling back and forth going up there to take care of her. And it was my son's birthday. He's turning 5. And she was to be released to a nursing home, which is a sympathy to anybody who has to go through this. But anyway, she was doing that well. And she said, go home for Sam's birthday. And she said, why don't you take me down to because she was in a wheelchair. Why don't we go down to the gift shop? Because I was down there earlier and I saw this plush moose. So it's Alaska. It's moose everything,
Right.
And I go around the gift shop and this woman calls me over and she says, we don't have anything like that. We have nothing like that. And I said, she said, that's what happens with stroke victims, So, I say goodbye to her, I get on the plane. I'm about to get on the plane. I get a call, if the stewardess pulls me off, it's the hospital. Your mother has just died.
Oh my God, Sarah, I didn't know that's how that happened.
Well,
That's
then,
sorry.
so I stay there and we do a memorial service and I get my father straightened out. My brother flies out. So it's so when I arrive, it's like almost my son's birthday. And I'm getting off the airport and I'm like, I got to get this kid a gift. I mean, I think actually his birthday was that day. So I decided to pull to this little farm stand that's up the road. And guess what they had?
Oh God. Oh my God.
So,
oh my God.
Right? Don't tell me that's
Nope. I believe you. And do
dry.
you still have it? Do you still have
Of
it?
course,
I bet
it's on my bureau.
I bet.
Yeah.
Because that's, and you know that. And and so people would say, like when I was researching these books, I've done so much research, and they'll say, why don't people come through to you with the name then? Why isn't it? And my father always said that. My father's a skeptic, not so much anymore, but he was. He'd say, if my father's coming through to me, why doesn't he say it's me, Pat? And so, my grandfather instead had the medium singing the song Zippity Doodah that my grandfather used to sing to my father. It's a wonderful day. When my father was a little boy, my father got all teary eyed. I said, that is a way for him. Anybody could have figured out that your father's name was Pat, but those little things like the moose. I mean, that's so random.
And I know. So that's where I fall in all that stuff. And we'll talk about ghosts some other time
and Laura Ingalls Wilder some other time.
That was such a disappointment. Did you read Prairie Fires?
I sure did on audio. Yeah, I did. And you did too.
Yeah.
It was interesting. We both grew up fans of the Little House books. So.
Well, right. And when I was 10 years old, I wrote the executive editor of Harper. What was it? Harper and Row, right?
It was Harper and Row at the time. Yeah.
Right. I tapped it out in my mother's Royal typewriter and sent it off there, and they wrote back, pledging how much I love Laura Ingalls Wilder.
Oh God. Well, in the Harper offices,
I both write for Harper.
Both write for Harper now. We share a publisher. We're publishing sisters at Harper. And if the pandemic truly ends and you get to go up to the office, I don't know if you've seen it. Have you been up there? They have the desk where those books were edited. They have the lore, all of the Little House stuff, and a bunch of other amazing authors, including Sarah Strohmeyer. So yay. Yeah.
So should we ask if there are any questions? Or
I think we should. I think we went over our time. I'm notorious for that. Where's John? Sorry, John.
No. Oh, it's fine. Like, you guys are so entertaining. Like, it's totally fine. So we do have a couple of questions. So we're going to start off with Sarah. So the inevitable question, Sarah, is there any chance that you might do any more Bubbles books at any point?
Well, let me just put it this way. I remember when I was writing Bubbles, I had a character who was Mama, who was 60 years old. And I remember somebody coming up to me and saying, 60-year-olds don't wear muumuus anymore. And I was like, oh, they do in Pennsylvania. Well, now I'm like 2 years away from 60. So I don't know. Maybe I'll write it from Mama's perspective. How's that?
Perfect. And I just saw, so we also had a question about, so when you were doing this new book, which was, like you mentioned, a departure, were you nervous about it?
You had a question about whether I was nervous about it?
Yeah. Were you nervous about digging into this new book, doing something kind of so different?
No. I mean, I think that it's like a challenge. I'm a big knitter, so I like getting a different knitting project and trying it, something I haven't done before, like lace or doing a puzzle. It's just, I was excited. I mean, I think the hard part is when you're in the middle of it and you think, is this going to work? But I think it did, because gloriously upended.
Excuse me. So Wendy, we mentioned when we were doing your intro that you've got a book coming out Tuesday. You've got another one coming out in January. Can you talk a little bit about your writing process and how you're able to be so prolific like that?
Yeah.
Yeah. As I just confessed during the interview, I have blown deadlines. So I'm not quite as efficient as I like to think, as I used to be, I guess we'll say. But I try to write to a certain word count every week. So I have a calendar and I know I have to be on page it used to be page. Now it's, I have to be at 10,000 words this Friday, and then I have to be at whatever next Friday. So I try to think of it in terms of pacing that way, because I have to be accountable to myself for my deadlines. So yeah, that works for me. It's basically, it's math. And like Sarah thought I was a chemistry whiz. I failed chemistry in high school. I really did. It's math it's very simple. You have to have a book in on whatever date. How many words do I have to write a week to get to that and get it in on time?
Yeah, I think word counts really help.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't know because I've just blew my deadline.
And I blew mine this week too, because we had to put up the tree and I had things to do. But I'll catch up.
So what is that like? You've both written lots of books. So what is that like when you have to send that email that says, hey, I'm not gonna make this deadline? Does it get easier because it's gonna get done at some point?
John, I've never sent that email in my life. I keep trying to send these. I try to send these cosmic messages to my editor. I keep dropping little hints. No one's picking up on it.
You're skulking around in dark glasses, hoping
I'm just
no one
basically
notices.
right now. I'm just going to fly under the radar. So hopefully they'll say, "Wait, didn't she have a book due last month?"
Oh God, I was off on my book deadline. I had a new publisher. I have a British publisher for the Lilydale books, and I thought that the book was due February 1st. It was actually due January 15th, and so I think it was the last week in January. She popped up and kind of said, "So is that book almost done?" And I was like, "Oh no!" I said that early in the pandemic when I mean things were chaotic, and I just had the wrong date in my head. So yeah, it's crazy. I was a few weeks late.
Well, my therapist said, "Well, what can they do to you?" I was like,
"Oh, it's a contract. It's a legal
blacklisting."
My editor now will ask me, because she knows, my editor at Harper will say, if you think you'll need more time, let's get it buttoned up ahead of time instead of after it was due. So,
and you always see those random stories where it's like, oh, this publisher paid this person like millions of dollars for a book that they were supposed to deliver like 2 years ago, and now they want the money back. So a couple weeks, months seems like that's probably fine.
Don Imus, I remember Don Imus like blew a publishing contract, the late Don Imus, and that was the millions of dollars, and he was like, well, just didn't do it,
just didn't do it. Just didn't feel it.
Didn't feel it. But Sarah Stewart Taylor also brought up a really good point, which is when you turn in a manuscript to your editor, it is the first time they see it. So you're creating a first impression, and it's better to create a better first impression than because they're never going to read it the same way again.
Right. That's it. They'll never come at it as a reader would.
No.
So you have to give them your best first draft, I think. And I usually only do one draft. I revise as I go, and then it's, instead of doing a complete first draft and then revising the first draft and then giving it to her.
Yeah. I know some people turn in just, here.
Yeah.
I don't do that. I try to be tidy.
Yeah. So while you guys were talking, Sarah mentioned a couple of things that she'd read lately that she loved. She mentioned No One Will Miss Her and A Stranger on the Beach. Wendy, what is some of the stuff that you read lately that you loved?
Oh God, I just read John Searle's Stranger Than Fiction. Loved it. I hadn't read it. It's pretty, I guess it's about 10 years old maybe now. Love that. I just finished it. Ellison Galen's The Collective. Love that.
On my list.
Yeah, it was really great. Trying to think. I read Paper Scissors, Rock Paper Scissors.
Oh, I love her. I love Alice.
Yeah, so good. Yes. So those are a few that I read them on audio, as I said. So pretty much anything that's on audio, and I'm reading Sarah's now. I'm loving the different voices.
I mean, audiobooks, I think that, you can also work it together. I don't know. I tend to buy multiple versions of the same book. I know that.
I do too. I often buy the print. Yep.
Yeah, I'll buy the book and I'll buy the audio, and so there you go.
Sometimes Kindle for my aging eyes. I'm like, just being able to read, like you can read it on your computer.
Yeah.
Anything big and bright makes it easier if someone's reading to me.
Yeah. It's nice to have options. I'm one of the weird people that can actually read in the car. So when we were driving up to my in-laws' place for Thanksgiving, I had the print galley that I was reading with, and I also had it loaded on my iPad, so that way when I got too dark that I couldn't see the book anymore, I could just pull out my iPad and keep reading and switch back and forth as I needed to.
Wow, you are.
You have it propped on the steering wheel, or is it?
So when you see him coming down the road, just give him some room.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. You know, Houston has those 6-lane highways either side. Just right.
Yep. So we talked, you guys also covered so many bases while you were chatting. You talked about what you've got coming up next. You talked about stuff that you've read. So I think that is going to about do it for this evening. But to recap for anybody who might have joined us late, we have been chatting with Sarah Strohmeyer, whose book, Do I Know You, just came out on Tuesday. And we've been chatting with Wendy Corsi-Staub, whose book Pros and Cons comes out on December 7th. And then she'll have another book, The Other Family, which comes out January 18th. If you missed any part of our chat once we're done, Facebook and YouTube will archive them. While you are in the YouTube channel, you can also check out, we got to chat with Wendy. Did we pair you up with Laura Griffin?
Yes, Laura Griffin last year. Yep. It was fun last year.
And then we also got to talk with Sarah Stewart Taylor a couple of times throughout the pandemic, which Sarah mentioned having done an event with her as well. So those are all up there. We hope that you will check those out. We've also got a couple of things still coming up this year, so make sure you check out the store calendar. We're really excited. In 2 weeks from today, we're going to be doing an event with the crime writers of color. Alex Segura and Kelly Garrett are going to be looking back at some of their favorite books of 2021. So I hope that you guys will check that out. We started doing a every other month reading series with them virtually, and it's been really fun. So this will be, I think, the second or third one. Yeah. So, and I dropped links to the books that we had been talking about that the authors had read this evening that they liked. I also dropped links to the event page on the website. So if you want to order any of their new books, previous books, you can do that. We are available online, or you can come into the store if you need any last minute gift ideas. So Sarah and Wendy, thank you so much for chatting with us this evening. This has been great.
That was so much fun. Thank you.
It was great. Thank you so much.
Happy another cab. This time I'll pay.
Y'all have a good night. Thanks so much.
Okay, you too.